Smoak.
A lot of the awards and honors in college football were given out last night. Some of them were known prior to the awards type event and function. There is one left, and that is the Heisman Trophy tomorrow. There are 4 finalists, and last night we found out who finished 5th through 10th in the voting. ESPN unveiled that. We're going to show that to you now. Craig Smoak to my right, Paul Catalina to my left, and Garrett Ross and Jack McKenzie today in studio. So leave that up for a second, Garrett, because we can talk about this. Hendon Hooker, there's no doubt in my mind, as a Heisman voter and also as someone who loves college football, would have been a part of the New York City trip. I don't know who would have been knocked out, but to me, had he stayed healthy, Hendon Hooker would have been among the top 4.
Stetson Bennett would have been knocked out.
Probably would have been Stetson Bennett.
Yeah.
So Hooker, 5. That's still very high considering he was knocked out. Bryce Young, the defending Heisman Trophy winner, at number 6. He ended up, I think, with better stats perhaps this year than he had last year. But they also have the 2 losses, those losses to Tennessee and LSU.
Yeah, it's always going to be hard for the defending Heisman Trophy winner who comes back to win it. You know, Jameis didn't win it. Johnny didn't win it. Tebow didn't win it again. Mm-hmm. You know, Bryce Young didn't win it again.
Only one has.
Yeah. I don't know if that'll ever happen again. I mean,
Caleb Williams
really
is coming back next year, buddy. So,
yeah, that's true.
I mean, I think he's winning it tomorrow night. I mean, if I just had to pick right now, I would be completely blown away in a good way if, you know, Max Duggan's name were to be called, or, you know, I'm sure for other people out there, if they were to hear, you know, a different name other than Caleb Williams called, you know, Georgia fans with Stetson Bennett and who am I missing? Who's the 4th finalist? Bennett,
C.J. Stroud.
Or Ohio State fans with C.J. Stroud. I think Duggan's the only one, in my opinion, that really has a chance to make it somebody other than Caleb Williams. You know, there's always the voting breakdown of how the regions went, and, you know, if you've got guys that are clumped together that maybe split votes and things like that, that will be all analyzed after tomorrow night, depending on how the votes go. We'll inevitably, like 2 minutes after the ceremony wraps up, see, like, the East voted, you know, 25% for this guy. And we'll see all that breakdown, but yeah, I feel pretty confident that it's going to be Caleb Williams or Max Duggan, and then Hendon Hooker. I mean, you know, going through the rest of the list here that you were starting with, I think Hendon Hooker was definitely deserving of a spot. The other guys.
Well, but what about Corum? If they had not been out the last couple of weeks, how much could he have basically forced himself into the top 4?
I mean, I don't think there's really anything he was going to do to force himself in that top 4. I mean, in my opinion, I think he's a fine running back. I think he's really good and all that. But I think when you saw what happened, you know, in his absence, not much of a drop-off for Michigan football. They didn't, you know, suddenly start losing games with him not fully healthy. I think that kind of overshadowed his year. You know, the fact that you had Donovan Edwards come in there and put up great numbers, and everybody's like, oh, so he's not that, like, so you can just plug and play, basically. And I don't think it's that simple, but I do think that was a thought that crossed a lot of Heisman voters' minds. Bryce Young's been good, but I think that, you know, Alabama is just not as good as they typically are, and not where we typically view them in the college football playoffs, so that's a big ding on him. And, you know, quite frankly, you know, that's fair because so often a lot of weight is put on the team itself. So if they're down a little bit, then just makes sense that it dings his stock. I do think it's massively disappointing if you're an Alabama fan, if you're an observer, that Bryce Young's not in the, you know, going to have a national championship when all is said and done because he's going to be heading to the NFL. So that's a big missed opportunity there for Alabama football. But you guys can go through some of the rest here.
Well, let's do that. Blake Corum at 7. Maybe he would have nudged up another 1 or 2, but he missed the game against Ohio State, and Edwards went off, and then, of course, the championship game in the Big Ten. Penix had a huge year, led the country in passing yards at the FBS level. He's coming back. Bijan, who we'll show you in a minute, won the Doak Walker Award, finished with the most yards from scrimmage for a running back, and for anyone as far as outside of being a quarterback. At number 9, I was surprised. I thought he would be like at 6 or 7. The 2 games and you dig into all of this, is the game against Alabama and then the game, of course, against TCU, 12 carries for 29 yards and did not catch a pass. The offense for Texas, but both teams' offenses struggled. And then there's the freshman, who there was a thought about a month ago that he might just barrel right into that top 4. Didn't do it, finished at number 10 because the finish for him in North Carolina wasn't quite the same. But those are numbers 5, through number 10. And we have a note about Bijan here in just a second.
I don't see you jumping up the Heisman race if you lose 3 games on the way out, and that's what happened in North Carolina.
And his numbers weren't even that good. Yeah, it wasn't like he was throwing 5 touchdowns and they were losing games because they got outscored. By I mean, he wasn't that great either. You know?
So Paxton asked in the chat room, but I thought I'd tell everybody else. He made the point of Blake Corum finished ahead of Bijan Robinson, but Bijan Robinson won the Doak Walker. Well, a lot of different people vote. Like the Heisman is 900 some odd people voting for it. The Doak Walker and the Blitnikoff and all that is a lot of different people. Most of us don't have Heisman votes. For example, I vote for the Blitnikoff and the Doak Walker and all the other awards. I voted for, probably 90% of them. And I don't have a Heisman vote. Smokey has a Heisman vote. I don't. But we're both members of the Football Writers Association, but I don't have a Heisman vote yet. I hope to one day. That'd be lovely. I voted for the Doak Walker. Since he's won it now, I told you, I almost wrote Bijan Robinson in 3 times because I thought he was the best running back. But it was my top 3 were Bijan Robinson, Blake Corum, and Chase Brown. So
and Bijan again, Texas and the Doak Walker Award. It's almost as if they should put a UT logo up on that. So he finished at 9 in the voting. And so I know Paxton, you've been really adamant about New York City or whatever. Again, there's only 4. It's like if we pick a top 5, we can't have 5 and then add 3. But there's no doubt Bijan Robinson, first of all, an incredibly good young man. Now, speaking of